Hi guys, welcome to today's tutorial. Today we'll be learning to make this beautiful house in mountains. So I'm taking an A6 horizontal landscape size sheet. You can make it in any size that you want. You can make it in A4, you can make it in A3. So I'm just taping down everything with masking tape, and after this I'm going to just do a very basic drawing of the house. This makes it a little easier for us, especially if you're beginners. It will be very easy for you to know where to put your colors, where to avoid adding a lot of wrong colors too. So although acrylics is quite good in the way that if you make a mistake you can always go over it, sometimes it's easier this way, so you don't waste a lot of color, and also it takes you less time and you can see the finished product early. So the first thing that I'm doing is I'm taking some ultramarine blue. You can also take Prussian blue, you can take some cobalt blue, and I'm going to be using this for the sky. So I'm using basically now a flat brush, and I'm just taking a few, I'm creating like a few dabs of it. And on top of the Prussian blue I'm just going to use some white. So you can use any blue, don't worry about the color of blue that you're using. Also understand that different brands might call the same colors in different ways, so it's fine to do that. Also, I would suggest that you can also mix your colors. You can use a little bit of ultramarine, a little bit of Prussian blue together, and then you can just make your own color that way. This makes your paintings very unique, and you also get to explore a lot of different ways in which color can be used. So you've seen over here that there's very little water that I use. It's basically the white which I use to blend in the colors together. Now while that dries, I'm going to use the similar colors to create the water, because there's going to be mountain between the water and the sky, so I will be able to create a silhouette. So now to make a little bit of a differentiation, I'm going to make the water a little lighter, so I'm using a lot of white. Now since the painting is A6, which is really tiny in size, I'm able to finish this much easier. Also, I'm using a bigger brush, so it's really fast to finish this kind of a painting, and the area that the flat brush covers is much larger. So in case you have a smaller brush, don't worry about it. It only means that you will probably end up painting for a little more time, a little longer it will take, but it will still come out quite well. So now I'm taking out some yellow ochre, and I'm going to be using this to create this surface on the sandy mountains. Since the acrylics tend to dry really fast, it's a good idea to use less colors in your palette in the beginning. Mix it up, you can always stop it later. It is easier to create colors, of course, if you are using it on a bigger, larger surface, larger area, and you're using a very strange color mix wherein you're using like very specific things, like a little bit of white and double the portion of your green, or anything in that specific ratio, or something that you know that you will not remember to recreate again, then please make sure that you have enough color. But yes, you will get the trouble of wasting a lot of color in case you're not sure of how much surface is going to be used up. So now for the mountain range, what I've done is I've used burnt sienna or a brown and a little bit of yellow ochre, and then I top it with a layer of white. So you'll notice that when I use the white, I don't make the entire white dirty. I just pick it from the top of the brush. So that way the bottom part of the brush still has some brown, but has a little bit of yellow ochre. So it gives a really nice texture that way. I'm just going to now add a little more colors. In this case, because the things are still wet, your surface is still wet, you can keep adding on lots of layers on top of this. Now sometimes there will be a point where we're not very sure if we like the colors the way they are or not. So in that case, just wait for the entire thing to dry, observe it from a distance, and then decide if you want to add any more details. Since it's acrylics, it does not matter if you add light over dark or dark over light. So here you can see I've used some more white, some more yellow ochre. Since the base is wet, they are all able to blend in very well with each other, and I can make the necessary changes that I want to according to my likes. Using a flat brush to create texture is very good at this point. If there was a round brush, maybe it would have been possible to do it, but still the final result will be little different. So even if you don't have a flat brush and you're using a round brush right now, don't worry about it. It is going to create a different kind of a texture on the surface, but it is still going to look quite nice when it all comes in together. So I'm just going to now use a little bit of darker brown. So you can either create a darker version of a brown by mixing a little bit of black with the brown, or you can just use black directly at the edges or at the places where you want a little bit of shadow. Now because my base is still wet, I'm able to blend this in quite well, and it's going from like a darker shade to a lighter shade. Using the same black color, I am now adding the shades to different areas of the land, and I'm just going to tap my brush to get that texture along and to blend this all in so that there's no specific color which is standing out too much. One advantage we have with acrylics as opposed to watercolors is you don't really have to wait for the object which you have painted next to the one that you're going to paint for it to dry, because in this case it's not going to spread along with each other. So for example, right now I am going to paint the inside of the house, and for that I don't need the sky or the water or the land below to completely have dried. So I'm going to take some red right now, and then I'm going to apply onto the house. So I'm going to use again like flat brushes. I think it's easier to fill in. You can also like try different techniques where you dip your brush in white first and then a little bit in red, and then you can just create a nice fun texture along. Since it's very cakey, it gives a really nice smooth effect, creamy effect together. I'm adding this red to the front part of the house, the side part of the house, and I'm also going to be adding it to the back house which is over there, and then I will take in some other color to create the shade inside it. So just a little bit of black as edges. I'm going to add that, and then I'm going to just blend it in with the red. So since it's very creamy, it's super easy to blend it. It does not require a lot of effort, as you can see over here. In case your paints have completely dried while you do that, you will need to add a little bit of red next to the black and blend those two colors in together. Otherwise you will not get this effect. It will look very patchy. Ideally, it's not a good finished product if it is too patchy, unless you want it specifically like that. Today the painting we are doing is got a little bit of blend in it. It's not very patchy, but feel free to create it in the way that you like. Now it's fine for the roof, and I'm going to use some brown on top of it first. I'll apply it for this particular roof, and then add a little bit of black at the edges to create some effect. So at the corners I want to have a little bit of white, which is why I have not completely covered that area. In the end, when the entire thing is dried, that's when I will be adding white. I also wait for everything to dry before adding the white most of the times, is because I don't want the base color and white to blend and create another color. It's just a lot of headache. So you might as well just wait for like 15-20 minutes for the base layer to completely dry, and then add the white wherever you need it towards the end of the painting. So just the way that your brush is moving gives it a nice roof texture. So I'm going in the same side as how the roof is flowing down. Now that the base parts of the houses and the mountain side is ready, I want to do something at the horizon at the back. So for this I'm going to mix a little bit of a darker blue with a little bit of black, and at the horizon I'm going to create a silhouette of a mountain. So this will give a lot of layering and depth to your painting. So I'm creating first like a base, the horizon line, and then I will add in the texture. So not necessary to always go very smooth in terms of your edges in when you're creating a silhouette like this, because you want to give some kind of motion that's happening. Imagine if there's like some wind blowing and there are some coconut trees over there at the bottom of this mountain, so you would want to show that, or some pine trees are there, or anything of in that matter. So this is more of a black and little bit of blue, but it more looks like a black. So you can go ahead with using that, and you can create your entire structure at the back. Now in this case, if you're not very confident of directly taking your brush and creating a silhouette, then please take a pencil, draw it out first on top of this. If the pencil is not showing up, then you can take a chalk, that shows up much better. If not, a color pencil. So these are some tips in which you can draw when you have acrylics already onto your canvas, and then you can fill in the colors inside with black. Here is how it looks when the entire back structure is completed. You can see that there's so much of depth right now. It feels like we are in front of the house over here, and very far away there are these bunch of mountains, and then this house is overlooking the lake. It is not at the edge of a lake. So there's so much of depth that can come into your painting by just adding these tiny elements. Layering in painting is what makes it very beautiful. When you go outside your house, or you look at from the outside world from the balcony, you can see multiple layers of things which are out there, and that is what makes it so beautiful for the eye, and it's something very nice for you to take in. Now that the houses have dried, I'm just taking white and adding it onto the edges where I want to show some details. So I'm also going to be adding white for my windows and for the roof edges. I'm now going to mix a little bit of darker brown to add onto the roof. I want to give like a hay kind of an effect on top of the cottage roof. So I'm going to mix some brown with a little bit of black. Now that the base has dried, I know that it's not going to mix into it, and my strokes are going to be visible pretty nicely. So I'm going to be adding those lines now. Again, here I will go in the direction of in which my roof is going down, so it looks much neater and nicer. So for the left one, I'm going towards that side, and I'm also adding some darker details at the edges, so it all comes in together. Here, now that I've added a little bit of dark brown on the edges, I'm adding a little bit of red to make sure that I'm able to blend it well. Don't use a different color here, because otherwise then your blend will not happen. They will look too contrasting from each other. This way I'm just going to go over the front of the house also using the same style, adding a little bit of brown where I want the shadow to be seen, and then I'm going to add a little bit of red next to it so that they all blend in together. Now that the details of the house looks much nicer, you can see a really nice beautiful shadow. I'm going to add a little bit of detail inside the window, which I'm going to add in some black. Now here you have an option. You can either create the box of black first, which is, in this case, you can create an entire square of black, let it dry, and then use white to create the detail of the window. Or you could do the way that I have done. The way I have done is a little complicated, so if you're a beginner, I would highly recommend you to create the black box first and then create the window details. I'm going to use the same black now over here to add some details onto the roof and onto the house also. So this will be like the final touch that we are giving on top of the roof and the house, and adding other small details. Since there's a very dark edge of black near the house, I'm going to add a little bit of brown next to it so that it blends in very well with the ground below the house. Otherwise, it'll look like a huge patch of black over there, and the contrast will be too much for the eye to take. I'm now going to finish up by adding the white details around the house. You can see here how easy it is to add the details onto the window with the white once the black has dried. So this is the second method, and you can choose whichever one is easier for you. I'm going to now take a little bit of dark brown to create like a cabin cottage view with small planks. So I'm just going to create these dark brown lines on top of the house around. It's now time for some finishing touches on the roof as well. Now that all the details are done, time to remove the masking tape and look at how the painting looks. I hope you enjoyed creating this with me. If you do recreate it, tag me on Instagram. I'll be able to see your artwork, and if you want, you can subscribe to my channel to get constant updates of art. Thank you so much.